Tim Tebow's returning to the NFL, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we should all have a huge issue with it. Not with Tim Tebow, but with the fact that somebody who is not at all qualified got one of the most coveted positions. Let me put this in context. The last time Tim Tebow was on an NFL roster was with me, the Philadelphia Eagles, 2015. I've been in the media for 5 years. We've seen 3 presidents since Tim Tebow last played an NFL game. Now, why is this a huge issue? We've been arguing about qualifications dictating hiring in the NFL for a long time. So much so that we instilled a rule, the Rooney Rule, to make sure that head coaches, that assistant coaches get hired based upon qualifications, not who they know. So how dare we ignore it when it has to do with players? Let me give y'all a little bit of math. Roughly 130 college football programs, 2 graduating tight ends annually. That makes 260 tight ends entering the draft on an annual basis. Over the last 8 years, that's a little over 2,000 tight ends that are more qualified to get that Jacksonville Jaguars spot than Tim Tebow. Now, why do I care? Why am I so hostile? Because it personally affected me. Remember, when I was in the NFL, the majority of my career spent under Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly, college head coach, moved to the NFL. There was literally a point in time where on our 61-man roster, 53 active plus 8 practice squad, we had 9 Oregon Ducks. Remember, Chip Kelly's alma mater. 9 Oregon Ducks. That's roughly 15% of our roster was based upon familiarity to our head coach. If we're going to take a stand on hiring the most qualified person when it comes to coaching, when it comes to assistant coaching, then we have to take a similar stand on hiring the most qualified person when it comes to playing the position as well. Well, that's my 2 cents, but I got to bring in NFL analyst Bucky Brooks to find out, Bucky, do you have an issue with Tim Tebow getting the Jacksonville Jaguars job?
Actually, I don't have an issue with him getting a job because this happens all the time. Every coach has what we call a pet cat, a player that they love, that they take with them wherever they go. Acho, I can tell you, I've been a pet cat. I was a guy who was a wide receiver, converted to cornerback in Green Bay. John Snyder moved from Green Bay to Kansas City. I go there. John Snyder then eventually goes to the Seattle Seahawks. I retire and become a scout for him. And so what typically happens in the league when you get comfortable with players, you trust them, and there's a connectivity. So when I go back to Urban Meyer, man, Tim Tebow might be the most decorated player that Urban Meyer ever coached on the collegiate level. So there's a level of gratitude that he feels towards Tim Tebow. So if Tim Tebow is down on his luck, he's looking for an opportunity. I am now the head of a new organization. I'm the czar, and I can make these things happen. Naturally, I'm going to give one of my favorite players an opportunity. Now, it's on Tim Tebow what he does, but we see this all the time. Just look in Dallas. Dan Quinn brought Keanu Neal and DeMonte Kazee with him to Dallas. Last year, Brian Flores gets the gig in Miami. He brings Cal Van Noy with him to the Dolphins from the Patriots. We see it time and time again. This is commonplace. I am not surprised that Tim Tebow has a spot with the Jacksonville Jaguars because he's always been one of Urban Meyer's favorites.
I appreciate that, Bucky Brooks. I appreciate that. I'm here now joined by my big brother, Sam Acho. The question, Sam, is not so much am I surprised by it, because I'm not surprised by it. Like Bucky, he's not. He's a wise man. The question is, do you have an issue with it? So do you have an issue with the Jacksonville Jaguars signing Tim Tebow?
Emmanuel, I don't. I don't have an issue with Jacksonville signing Tim Tebow. And the reason why is that this is Urban Meyer's first year in the NFL. And Bucky alluded to it a little bit, but when you're a new coach, you want some familiarity. And I believe that Urban Meyer has a plan. He had a plan everywhere he's been. At Utah, he had a plan. He had a plan at Ohio State. Florida, everywhere he's been, he has a plan. And what we've seen, like you saw in your time in Philly, he has a plan. Let's go to some of the coaches. Right, let me just present that for a second. Chris Ash, the DB's coach right now in Jacksonville. He coached with Urban at Ohio State. Brian Schneider, he's a Jag special teams coordinator. He coached with Urban back at Colorado State. Even going to Charlie Strong, who you and I both know well from our time at Texas. Charlie Strong was the DC with Urban in Florida. And so what I see Urban doing is bringing people around him to try and succeed at a level that he hasn't been at before. He's not trying to fail with people he doesn't know. At least let me bring the Tim Tebows of the world, my coaches. Let me get some players who I know. Carlos Hyde, he brought him in the offseason. He coached Carlos Hyde at Ohio State and drafted Luke Farrell. So he's bringing as many people as possible to be comfortable in his new position. I have no issue.
The issue I have, and I need my 3 box because I want to look at Bucky and I want to look at my brother at the same dang time. The issue I have, fellas, is not familiarity. That's not my problem. I understand familiarity. The issue I have is a lack of qualification. Bucky, you talked about Brian Flores bringing in fellas he's familiar with. Kyle Van Noy played for the Patriots, outside linebacker. Brian Flores brought him into Miami. So many others. Sam, you mentioned a litany of players, a litany of coaches that Urban Meyer is familiar with. Well, Chris Ash has coached before. Charlie Strong has coached before. My guy Bucky Brooks, you mentioned Keanu Neal. He's played safety at a high level, even in the NFL before. So I have no issue with that. But fellas, let's talk about the issues. I have an issue when you're hiring somebody that is not qualified. I'll speak from experience. 2013, Philadelphia Eagles. I'm on the roster. I'm there with Chip Kelly, Michael Vick, LaShawn McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, all them dudes. But also on the roster is a great person, but a wide receiver by the name of Will Murphy. Now, Will Murphy was a walk-on wide receiver at the University of Oregon. Look him up if you shall, but I'll tell you about it. Will Murphy had a career, 24 catches, 240 yards. Career, 24 catches, 240 yards. We kept Will Murphy on practice squad over B.J. Cunningham, a 6th-round pick who had, in his senior year at Michigan State, 79 catches, 1,300 yards, and 12 touchdowns. I was flabbergasted. Bucky, in the locker room, we're like, yo, we really the Philadelphia Ducks. We the Oregon Eagles. Here's the problem. I don't mind you hiring somebody you're familiar with, but you can't hire somebody you're familiar with who is not qualified. Tim Tebow is a phenomenal college football player, maybe one of the greatest college football players ever. But he's not a tight end. He's never played tight end. He hasn't played in the NFL in 8 years. Last time he was on a roster was 5 years ago. Fellas, y'all have to make this make sense. There is no reason to put Tim Tebow on an NFL roster. You want him in the locker room, Bucky Brooks? Make him an assistant strength coach. You want him in the locker room, Sam Acho? Make him a player development coach. But you don't need to give him a helmet and shoulder pads, y'all.
Emmanuel, so first of all, let me just hop in real quick because I know you're passionate. We were talking together in Philly. When you were in Philly, I was in Arizona. You're passionate. I'm passionate. I get it. Tim Tebow, you played with him. Y'all are friends. Y'all are homies. I understand that. But if you want to talk about even the coaching aspect, you said, okay, make him as a coach. He's never coached before. So there's no room for that. Strength coach. He's never been a strength coach before. So I feel your point. But at the end of the day, there's some NFL players that are probably upset that Tim Tebow was getting a roster spot. You were one of them, Emmanuel. You're probably very upset that Tim Tebow is getting a roster spot. But here's the thing. Many of those players who are upset about this roster spot may not have a job regardless. They may not have a job anyways. There's 90-plus guys on the roster right now. The roster gets cut down to about 52, actually 53 in a couple months. Those guys, if Tim Tebow's taking your job, you probably didn't deserve a job in the first place.
No. These are personal attacks that you are making, Sam Acho, on your own flesh and blood. How dare you? Now, here's the thing, Bucky, before I get to you, sir. Tim Tebow may never have been a strength coach before, but at least he lifted weights. Tim Tebow, he ain't never been a head coach before, but at least he's given a motivational speech. I will never let us lose another football game again as long as I am the quarterback. At least he done that. Last time Tim Tebow was throwing a ball, they hit him in the face mask. Y'all look it up. So again, Sam, it's not a matter of, favoritism, having him in the locker room. I'm not surprised, Bucky. I'm not surprised. But he did not deserve the job. And if you, Bucky, are going to go on record, which you have done, and said we need to make sure that the most qualified coaches get jobs, how dare you come on the same record, on the same show, and turn a blind eye to Tebow?
Because what he's getting is not really a job. He's getting an opportunity. It's a difference. If Tim Tebow makes the roster at the end of the year when they kick it off, then he's earned the job, but he has to earn it. But we've seen all kinds of guys come through the locker room. We've seen track stars who have never played a down get an opportunity to come through a camp. We've seen basketball players who've never played football get an opportunity to play in the National Football League through training camp. So I can understand being all upset about Tim Tebow getting an opportunity, but sometimes, man, and we know this, sometimes it's who you know, not what you know. And Tim Tebow is parlaying his relationship into an opportunity. But ultimately, it's on Tim Tebow to earn the job. They're not going to give him a roster spot. He is going to have to show people that he can do the things either as a tight end or as a special teamer. The odds are long in terms of him being able to do that. So we'll see. No need to get upset. He has to go out and compete just like these guys do at these rookie mini camps and tryouts. We'll see if Tim Tebow can get it done.
Bucky, I'm glad you said a roster spot, not the roster spot. Let's break this down for fans. We've all been in locker rooms. We've all been on teams. The objective when you're in an NFL training camp isn't to make the team. The objective is to make a team. You're auditioning for all 32 teams. You're not auditioning just for your team. If you've ever played in the league, you understand exactly what I'm saying. But here's the problem with that ideology as it pertains to Tim Tebow. You cannot make a team unless you are on the team, because being on the team allows all teams to see you. So, yes, that 90th roster spot, that 5th tight end on the depth chart, he's likely not going to make the team. And Tim Tebow is likely not going to make the team. That's the Jacksonville Jaguars. But who did he rob the opportunity from making a team? I'm passionate because I was that dude. I was that 5th-string linebacker, Bucky Brooks. I was that 4th linebacker on the depth chart, Sam Acho. I was the 6th-round pick. Sach, you were the 4th-round pick. Bucky, I don't recall where you were drafted, but you had a longer career than I. You was the 2nd-round pick. I was the guy who Tim Tebow is robbing a roster spot. I was the guy who Tim Tebow is robbing the opportunity at the chance to make a team. Now, is it far-fetched? Absolutely. I was cut 5 times before the age of 25. Now, I still played my 4 years, vested pension annuity. That's why I'm sitting right here right now, so I ain't tripping. But I was still robbed my opportunities. Let me clarify again. I am not at all upset at Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow's a great locker room guy. Tim Tebow's a great guy. Tim Tebow's a friend of mine. If I saw him right now, I'd dap him up. We played together. But I have an issue with, and we all should have an issue with, any aspect in society where the most qualified person or people or persons are not getting jobs because of some dude that you know.
Yeah, I have no issue with your emotions, Emmanuel. And you're a very logical person who's acting and speaking on emotion right now. But let's just take some statistics, right? So you got 90 guys on the roster, cut down to 50 some odd. So that's about 40 people who are going to be cut when you make cuts. 40 times 32, that's about 1,300 players that will not have a job, more or less. Take it or leave it. 1,300. You were one of the guys who got cut and then got signed back. Cut and signed back. Remember Casey Matthews, prime example. He knew he was an Oregon connection. You feel like you might have been better than Casey, but Casey had favoritism. So I get it. I'm with you with the emotional piece. But statistically, if Tim Tebow is better, I believe he's going to show it. And yes, he might take one of those 1,300 spots, but I'm an outside linebacker. So if I see Tim Tebow on that football field and I do what I do, I'm going to run him over. I'm going to embarrass him. If I'm a DB, Eddie Jackson, I played with him back in Chicago. If Eddie Jackson sees Tim Tebow, and if Tim Tebow makes a catch on Eddie Jackson, he should be embarrassed. And so what's going to happen is Tim Tebow's not going to do well, and then he's going to get cut.
I don't know that.
So one out of 1,300. Let's just say statistics.
If you want to talk statistics, let's talk this statistic. Because you brought up a name that elicited a visceral reaction in my heart and in my spirit. Bucky, don't laugh. I can hear your laughter in my ear. Don't laugh, because this is true, America. Casey Matthews, Oregon Duck, made one of the greatest plays we've seen in a national championship game against Auburn. Cam Newton that year, they beat Oregon. Casey Matthews dives, punches a ball out, forces a fumble. It was one of the most athletic plays I'd have never seen in my life. It happened in college. Here's why I have an issue with it. 2014, starting linebacker gets hurt. Casey Matthews and I are backup linebackers. I start the season on practice squad. Casey Matthews starts the season on the active roster. All of a sudden, Michael Kendricks gets hurt. He's our starting linebacker week 2. So I am thrust not only to the active roster, but I start week 3 against the Washington football team, formerly the Redskins. Why did I, who was on the practice squad so that Casey Matthews would stay on the active roster, y'all are going to promote me not just to the active roster, but ahead of the guy who you kept over me? Now, maybe Casey was better than me. Maybe he was. The only problem, if we're looking at statistics, Pro Football Focus ranked him the 54th best linebacker that year, and me the 33rd. So I literally lost money and opportunity, and a dream was deferred because of coaching familiarity. I'm not speaking for me. My life is Gucci right now. I'm on set in a custom suit, so I ain't mad. But the fact of the matter is, imagine how many other cats like me, Bucky Brooks, are out there losing opportunities because of what their coach knew and what their coach knows about a former guy who just isn't necessarily as talented statistically.
Look, I get it. Langston Hughes, you're all up in your feelings right now. You're mad about your dream being deferred. I get it. But life isn't a crystal staircase. So you made it, and you're on top of it. Here's what I will say, though. This is commonplace. Having worked in front offices, some guys get the benefit of the doubt. Some guys get the head start, and it's on other guys to find a way to work around that. Tim Tebow certainly is being afforded an opportunity that some would not get. Now, it is ultimately on him because, as Sam alluded to, if Tim Tebow goes out as a tight end who was a quarterback, if he hooks you as a defensive end or as an outside linebacker, you deserve to get laughed at and poo-pooed. If Tim Tebow runs routes on a safety or a nickelback and he catches the ball, you deserve to get all the jokes. And so that's what it is. Ultimately, he has to earn it on the field. And I don't know if many of us believe it's going to happen.
Timeout. I'm throwing out technical fouls to you, Bucky Brooks, technical fouls to you, Sam Acho. Here's why. In all honesty, I have no issue with y'all's logic. Like, straight up and down, I have no issue at all with y'all's logic. But here's the problem, y'all. We can't write articles for the Players Tribune, Sam Acho, talking about the difference between upper-level management and lower-level management and how come not all head coaches who deserve a fair shake are getting fair shakes because of nepotism, hiring your family, and cronyism, hiring your friends. We can't write articles for the Players Tribune arguing that we aren't giving head coaches who are more qualified a fair enough shake. We can't do that. Bucky Brooks, we can't come on TV and say that too many coaches of color aren't giving fair shakes so that their white counterparts who know other head coaches are getting fair shakes. We can't come on TV and criticize Cliff Kingsbury, who is a losing coach in college and became a head coach in the National Football League because of who he knew and how he looked. We can't criticize those dudes, then come out here and just be like, oh, I mean, it's just the way the game goes. It's just the way the game goes. I won't stand for it because it's the exact same thing. If we're going to tolerate Tim Tebow getting a head coaching, Tim Tebow getting a job on the Jacksonville Jaguars roster because of who he knew. And if that's going to be okay, then Sam, I need you to revoke that Players Tribune article. Bucky, I need you to revoke all your old takes, and y'all at least need to sing the same hymn year round. Somebody take the floor.
Emmanuel, what job has Tim Tebow earned? He hasn't earned any job right now. He's earned an opportunity. Yes, he tried out. People might see that as an opportunity.
One of 90 is not a job? That's a job.
He could be on the team for a week. He could be on the team for a week.
That's fine.
They had some coaches who got hired for about a week and then got fired in Jacksonville. So you could be on the team for a week and then in OTAs or in rookie minicamp or whatever, because veterans can't go to rookie minicamp as well, you could be exposed or embarrassed. So what job has he earned? I personally believe Cliff Kingsbury, I love the example you brought up. I love the example. I don't think he deserves a job in the NFL, but he has one. Bucky's point, he said, man, he was kind of the coach's guy. He maybe didn't deserve that, but he got it. And so my issue is not necessarily with him deserving it, but he got it. And that's the world we're living in right now. Do I think it's okay? Do I think it should be the way it's done?
That's the question.
Do I think it should be the way it's done, overarching? No, because I wrote about it.
Thank you.
But at the end of the day, this is a tryout. It's not a job. He hasn't been signed to a.
It's not a tryout.
It is a tryout. What guarantees does he have? What team is he on? What roster has he made? The last time I checked, is made.
I had to go to tryouts, so I know the difference between being in a tryout
as well. I did. I know later in my career.
I know the difference between being in a tryout where you are not under contract and being under contract. Being under contract means you have a job. Going as a tryout with no contract is a tryout. Now, he may be auditioning while he has the job, but Tim Tebow is under contract. Tim Tebow got a job now.
Emmanuel, NFL contracts are not guaranteed. So if I'm thinking what this contract may have been, I don't know what the statistics are, but the checks don't cash until August and September. The checks don't cash till you make that 53-man roster. So right now, if you're there and you're showing up, you might be getting $1,000 a week, maybe $900. If you're a veteran, maybe $1,500. Those checks aren't cashing until August, September, and October. That's when the money comes in. And so, yes, he has a quote-unquote contract, but that is fake, false. This is a glorified audition, a glorified tryout. Yes, I've been to tryouts as well. Later on in my career, after a couple injuries, I had to go try out for the Saints. I tried out for the Bills. Those were tryouts. And one of the teams I didn't make it, one of them I did. I had an opportunity. But once again, the best players show what they can do. And last quick point, if I may. just going on the familiarity piece because I have an issue with it. But my real issue is if you're not familiar with people who don't look like you, think like you, act like you. After I got released from the Buffalo Bills, my last year in the NFL, I torn my pec the year before, was kind of limping through the last season in 2018. 2019, I get released by the Bills. And all of a sudden, halfway through the season, no one's calling. No more tryouts, nobody. And then Tampa Bay had some injuries. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 2 starting outside linebackers who got hurt. And you know who called my phone? Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles. You want to know why? Because they coached me back in 2013 and coached me back in 2014, back when I played in Arizona. You want to know why that made sense? Number one, I knew the system. I had to play. It was a Monday. I got a call. I had to play on Sunday. I knew the system, number one. And number two, there was that familiarity. They knew what I brought to the locker room. And so, yes, I have an issue with when you talk about coaches and general managers and the cronyism and nepotism. I wrote about it. I have a very huge issue with it. But if that's the world we're living in, and Tim Tebow hasn't had an official job yet, just a tryout, a glorified workout, I believe he's going to get exposed. And then if he makes the team for being a good tight end, then more power to you. But he's getting an opportunity, a tryout, a shot, and that's all this is.
Yeah, Emmanuel Acho, you're getting mad about the paid internship that Tim Tebow is getting because all he's getting right now is per diem, some T-shirts, some shorts, maybe a sweatshirt every now and then. That's it. So it's no need to be upset about that because ultimately the one thing that is really the determining factor in football, you have to play. And he is going to have to play at some point. He's going to have to put his hand in the dirt and show people that he can block, that he can catch, that he can be a contributing member of the team. And so there's no need to get worked up. But back to your point, because I do have an issue with nepotism and cronyism. It is something that is pervasive in the National Football League. It's something that we see in the coaching ranks and time. And it's one of those things that we certainly have to address at all times. But this is a situation where, look, man, when we see it with players, it happens all the time. We can address it. But the one thing that we don't know, on every roster, there are about 4 or 5 guys that are there because of the relationships, either with their position coaches or the coordinators. We can't legislate that part out of it. It is one of those things that exists. It's going to continue to exist. And Tim Tebow certainly is benefiting from it. We can bring attention to it. But ultimately, Tim Tebow has to earn that job, even though he's being given a head start on the opportunity.
The best way to close this conversation, and y'all got me riled up, is with a quote by a great orator, a great author, a great public speaker. Simply said, it's a bias that might be unconscious, but it's palpable, and I've witnessed it firsthand. Sam Acho, in regards to the difference between head coaches not getting correct opportunities.